Evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me this evening on the 24th of the February 2022. A historical day. That's what I would say. A very historical day. Two things. One, today is the last day of the mask. That is wearing the mask. You know, COVID is finished. Corona is finished. And today is also the day where Putin has taken off the mask and actually declare and determine that he was going to invade a sovereign country. And it's interesting that there's not much more to talk about except that. And it's a perilous time in the world, as we'll see. But, ladies and gentlemen, I'll just go straight into it and I'll just bring in my guest. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I bring in Mr. Gary Graham. Reverend Graham, how are you doing, sir?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm
You're
doing.
doing good.
It's great to be a part of the Sylbourne Serial Show once more.
Fantastic, fantastic. I'm seeing you in the tie, and I'm wondering, what is it that is it because some developments in the world? Have you got Putin? Are we going to be able to get Putin online or something like that?
Well, I was hoping that probably you'd be able to get him on, so that's why I'm trying to look the best.
I'm blocked. I'm in the UK. Boris blocked me, and everybody blocked me, and Trump blocked me. So won't be able to hear from Putin. But let's bring in Sir James all the way from Manchester. Maybe James can do a major difference. James, have we got Putin online?
No, unfortunately, he's lacking in the hair, and so he sees me of no use to him.
I like that one.
James, how are you doing, sir? How are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you. Very well.
Thank you for coming on at short notice, because I've been trying to get different persons and say, guys, everybody, just come on tonight. Let us have a discussion, because I was watching BBC, going through all the different stations, Al Jazeera, Russian Times. I think Russian Times, I believe, have some sort of hiccup now, and I said, come on, man, we got to get Sylbourne TV also to get into what's happening, what we want to say, about what is happening, because I believe that if there's a war, or if this thing breaks out into a big blown thing, we are the ones going to affect more than the world leaders. World leaders have their little place where they can go to. We are the ones going to suffer. But first of all, yes, tell me what you guys think about that. James, as you are the newbie.
As I'm the newbie. I don't know. It's interesting. Surprisingly, as you know, I'm a hairdresser and I speak to people all day, and currently nobody seems to feel particularly strongly about it. I did have one friend, funnily enough, say he felt that Putin was right, which befuddled me a little bit. And he said, well, New World Order and all this sort of stuff. And I said, and he just made me think about it a little bit. And it's just, my thoughts on it are extremely simple. You simply just do not go into other people's countries and start bombing them and attacking them. I can't conceive of there being many reasons that could ever justify that. Clearly Putin, I have to say, is insane in some way, obviously.
Yeah. Well, let me just say hi to Sharon Hart, Queen Patricia, Milana Ben on Instagram. Love to hear your views and your comments. Those on Noreen Hunt as well, Kyle Sonder in the chat. Let us hear what you say. Let's just have a discussion on this. Sir Gary, what's your take? We have been talking about leadership for a while, and we're going to come on to that at some point near to the end about effective leadership in the world. But your initial take as to today, because we have been following this up, but today made a big difference.
Yeah, it's just sad. I think history dictates really that in times like these, despots, if Putin can be called that, really, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
They would say all along there's no plan to invade. We're just doing our military exercises. We're just doing our practice runs, this, that, and the other. And if you remember, it was last week, Wednesday, I believe it was.
Yes.
not this Wednesday, it was last week Wednesday, that we were being told by the Western intelligences, both American as well as European and British, that Putin was going to invade Ukraine. Obviously, it didn't happen,
Yes.
which again probably put the Western intelligence agencies on the back foot. But they were always saying he's going to invade. He has invaded Thursday morning. This morning he invaded. Um, Putin, if you notice his stance and his demeanor, he was, I mean, if he could be spitting fire, fire would be coming out of his nostrils, out of his ears, and out of his mouth, really, because he was a totally different person. If you look
Mm.
at him, if you could rerun the whole speech and certain sections of his speech, he was not the Putin that this world knew or knows.
It's like
He
a
was,
different person, a total different
yes.
person.
Somebody said on the radio this evening, I was listening on the way in, that he was a man unhinged. You know, I've never seen him like that before, really. So he was very upset. He was very much, laying down the gauntlet to NATO and to the United States. And I think that he wants Ukraine for whatever reason, but I think that he wants to reestablish the USSR. And if he could get back Poland and Estonia and Latvia and all the other nations that are a part of NATO, it's only Ukraine that has not joined. But
Yeah.
if he could get back Poland and the rest, then he could or he would. But because they were part of NATO, you touch one, you touch all. So he doesn't want that fight. He's not
Yeah.
going to, I don't think he's going to touch Poland and such. But it's a sad situation, and I do feel it for the Ukrainians, if that's the right terminology there. I feel sorry for them, and I just hope it will come to an end, because Ukraine, as we know it, or those who have ever been, is destroyed now. I mean, there's going to be war there, and the Ukrainians are going to fight. They will fight. So, you know,
The, the the thing about it is that it takes two to have a war, and some are saying that the Ukraine are not responding in a war response, because when you check it out in comparison, Russia is like this and Ukraine is like this. The war will really kick into play if NATO gets involved, if America gets involved, and the UK gets involved, and that is where it overspill into something. James, when you think about this, and ladies and gentlemen, when you think about this now, who will be impacted more? Okay, okay, let's look at this way. Should Russia have its way for the sake of less lives lost, or the world need to teach him a lesson by shutting him down, which will create a bit of a more loss of lives?
Well, I mean, for me personally, excuse me, I apologize.
Yeah, that's all right.
For me personally, the right answer is he needs to be shut down,
Mm,
because just like the school bully in the playground, or any of the multitude of analogies you could give for this situation, it's not okay. And where does it end? The complication to it is that as much as other world leaders use diplomacy and so on in a way that Putin currently is not, I wouldn't trust any of them to handle it well and
mm,
save us from catastrophe. That's the complication in it all. The right thing is make him stop. The trouble is who do we know and trust? Which leaders do we believe in that would intelligently bring about an end to it, as opposed to bringing about an end to everything ultimately?
there was a few years back in the Kennedy days, and I'm going to just read something that I posted this morning. I want to see if I can find it, and I'll just read it because it's interesting and it resonates today. Um, and it goes like this. Strangely, uh, if I can find it. while America, no, that's not the one. Where is it? Where is it? Anyway, it goes like this. Once upon a time, there was a country called Cuba, which by chance still exists today, but under different leadership, but same mantra. The country wanted to choose their friends, but their big neighbors said, "No way, you can't get so close to that person. I forbid it," said the late president, which is Kennedy. So their friends backed off, which of course is Russia. Fast forward today, is this not the same thing which is happening? That a friend don't want their neighbor to be close to that big neighbor. What a calamity. The more things change, the more things remain the same. Isn't this a sort of replica of the same thing that happened some years ago, whereby America said, "No way Cuba can have Russia in our back garden." And when Russia is actually saying, "No way can I have NATO and all these guys surround my country," when they like to do regime change.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously, it is similar in that way, isn't it? At the same time, there is one stark difference, which is for all the flaws of any country, no country's perfect. At least these other nations, we're all about granting other nations their own sovereignty and abiding by it. America being the exception, and it seems to be that exception is when it's with Middle Eastern countries for whatever reason. But by and large, that's the difference. Is like having Poland be friends with France is not a risk of some sort of war or invasion to Russia, whereas having Russia on your doorstep, as they are proving right now, does put you at that risk. One thing I would like to say on that, though, the analogy, because I did recently hear that one of the major reasons it didn't blow up into a world war that time in Cuba was because of a Russian in a submarine who did not follow the orders that he'd been given, which is, if you lose contact with us, fire the nuclear warhead that's on your submarine. He chose not to do that and came up, and thankfully he'd have done the wrong thing had he done it, and all was well in the end. But I don't think we're necessarily in that situation where some fortuitous situation of an individual not following orders will salvage a situation. I don't think we're in that position.
Yeah. By air, land, sea, Russia launched devastating attack on Ukraine, a European democracy of 44 million people. For months, Vladimir Putin had denied he would invade his neighbor, but then he tore up a peace deal, sending forces across borders in Ukraine, north, east, and south. 2022, 70 years after World War. Of course, you have these different wars with Iraq and Afghanistan in between. Unbelievable, isn't it? That today this still thing could happen.
Yeah.
Now, where is the leadership of the? Where would you say now this fell out of hand, whereby the leaders of this world, and I won't get into Trump yet. Is it that the leaders of this world has let us down?
I'll defer to Reverend Gary.
Well, I mean, I think I'm of the opinion, that and I said some programs ago, if you remember, Sylbourne,
Yes.
that the leadership of the 21st century, we are in the 21st century, aren't we, or the 22nd? Which one?
We have been in the 21st century for a long time. I can't believe it. It's a long time we have been in the 21st century.
Yeah.
But I think the leadership of today and the leadership of yesterday are very much different. I'm not saying again that the men of yesterday, of yesteryears, such men like Heath or like Chamberlain, like Winston Churchill. I'm not saying these men were perfect. They weren't, and they made many mistakes in their lives personally as well as with them governing. However, there seems to have been some gravitas about them. There was some respectability about them. Yes, they had their mistakes, and we could always throw up their flaws all the time. We can always do that. But there was something about them making decisions and the respect that they had and that they wielded that the leadership of today do not have. For instance,
Mm.
look at our present leader at this moment in time, Boris Johnson, and go backwards. Then you have what's her name?
Theresa May.
Yeah, Theresa May. Then even go further back, you have Cameron, and then go backwards. Now, the more you go backwards to some extent, you have up till a point you've got it shows very weak leadership.
Mm.
The people really don't know who to look to. Now, Tony Blair, with all of his faults, and he's one that probably had faults, yes.
Yeah.
But I believe again there was some. I never trusted him. I'm one to raise my hand and says I never trusted him. However, there was something about Tony Blair
Yes.
that had that that um that he showed leadership and
Yeah.
he had some kind of gravitas about him. As young as he was when he took it on, but he grew into the role.
Yeah.
Now today we've got Boris Johnson, right? If you remember, the last thing he wanted to do was to go and see Putin, and what did Putin do? He fobbed him off. I mean, they called him Partygate. They never,
Yeah.
who is
Yeah.
Boris Johnson? One of
Yeah.
the leading spokesmen of one of the world's most industrialized country, and yet still nobody. One of the most powerful men in the world didn't even want to meet him.
Mm.
If it was Margaret Thatcher, if it was the prime minister that we never had, which was Michael Heseltine, if it was anybody else, Putin would have met them. He
Yes.
didn't want to have anything to do with Boris Johnson. Not many people want to have anything to do with our present prime minister.
And his what do you call it? The foreign secretary was fobbed by the Russian foreign secretary as well.
Exactly. So I think that leadership of today, and when you look across the board, even the Chancellor of Germany. Now look at Merkel. Merkel
Yeah.
had great respect. Germany had great respect. When you think of France, when you think of Spain, Spain, Germany, France, Belgium, the major economies of the European nations. When you think of them and where they're coming from, the leadership that they had, you couldn't fob them off because the whole world knew where they stood. Now the leaders, where are they? They may call themselves president or they may call themselves prime minister or premiers, but they don't wield any personal gravitas, anything about them.
Yeah.
Well, if I may say something on that
Go on,
point,
James.
if that's okay, because I completely agree. At the same time, though, I think it's some of our countries in a difficult position because there's something of an evolution going on. Like if you think just with the UK, well, we hadn't even handled Brexit by the time COVID's hit. And
Right.
so Boris doesn't have a real chance to prove that he's a leader. Then the whole world goes mad. And,
Yeah.
politicians being human beings like everybody else, they're subject to start caving in and doing ridiculous, mad things in the wake of it all. I mean, having a party and then making jokes about it on camera, bloody hell. I mean, it's ridiculous, but then at the same time, we're trying to navigate, it seems to me, this sort of era wherein you're trying to grant a voice to so many people, and it's a bit tricky because too many people are having their say over issues that are non-issues, but you're trying to demonstrate the fact that you're a country that believes in listening to people and allowing them to have a voice. And so it makes it really, really difficult, I think, to show leadership because especially if you're British, you expect the UK Prime Minister, leadership or not, to not speak disparagingly of the people in the nation whether they're from some obscure minority or whether they're from a minority which has long since been held down or what have you. You know, you want to be polite and have manners because that represents what we're all about. And so I think, at least for Boris Johnson, I don't know too much about other countries, you know, but I watch a lot of American news. I don't think you can give the same make the same allowances for Joe Biden because the American nation is a very adolescent nation. It loves a fight, it loves a war, it loves to be impolite and be rude, and that's all okay. But in this country, you have to be polite, and in the face of all of it, you have to act that way. And I think it's very difficult for Boris Johnson in the face of all of that to demonstrate any real leadership apart from to not turn around and attack his detractors, which I think he does that at least.
Could we say then that persons like Putin is the last of that era? Francois Mitterrand, Margaret Thatcher, you know, Ronald Reagan, that era, because I was looking at his as a bit of his bio on Wikipedia, and Wikipedia does sometimes say the truth. You know what I'm saying? And what it says is that he was a former KGB, right?
Well, there you go.
You know, born 7th of October 1952, Russian politician, former intelligence officer, serving these positions in 2012.
Yeah.
Previously held office from 1999 until 2008. He was also the prime minister from 1999 to 2000, right? Putin worked as a KGB foreign intelligence officer for 16 years, right? So this was during the part of the Cold War era. This guy's from that era. You understand? And that is why he comes with something different from all of these guys now.
Yeah.
And that is why what was said, Gary, I think someone said it, the era of those leadership have gone. Tony Blair was one of maybe the last of that one with that level of conviction. Margaret Thatcher had conviction. Whether you like her or not, she'll take her handbag and lick you. You know, she's not going to turn. And you know, you saw Merkel when she was speaking with Trump, and Trump is like this, and she's looking down at him like that. You know what I'm saying? Trump is like a little boy, but you have no sort of effective leadership today, and that is why I believe. And one of the things that Biden, with his age and his stature, would have somewhat commanded some level of authority figure. That is totally lacking.
Totally. He's even less popular now than Trump was at his lowest ebb.
Well, that brings in the question: do you think this would have happened under Trump?
I mean, I would say no, but before we get on to Trump, because I love Trump and it's going to change my mood. Before we get onto that, like you said, you know, is Putin like one of these last generation of these types of leader? And I think as much as you want a leader with strength and leadership qualities, we do want to see an end, in my opinion, to people like Putin and so on, because it's a little bit like, I see it like this. Thankfully, there was an end to when the child would go into school and the teacher would pull out the ruler and hit the child. You see, and to me, that is what leaders like Putin are. It's all well and good being a man of conviction or a woman of conviction in that Margaret Thatcher's case and so on. At the same time, it doesn't really leave any room for creative thinking. And ultimately, all the greatest things that we've ever looked upon politically, artistically, it doesn't matter. They all came from creatively thinking people who would demonstrate that sort of out of the box, not within the confines of usual mantras. And that's where the solutions would come from. And hopefully we get more of that, not this rigid carrot and stick sort of operation.
Yes. Gary?
Yeah, I mean, I think that again, I will take with what James has said earlier, in that there is something happening in our world today. The leaders that we're having today, and you mentioned it again just recently. The leaders that the leaders of yesterday, they experienced war.
Yes.
They have experienced war. Many of them were fighters. Many of them were generals. A few of them were generals, like the United States, the president of the United States and such. And either fought in the First, Second World Wars, fought in the Korean Wars and Vietnam Wars. They've had experience.
Yes.
The leaders of today, they don't know what war is. They don't know that, some of them don't have a clue of how devastating it can be. They've learned it in their history lessons. So
Yeah.
to go to war, some don't want to touch it, or to go to war again to make a decision is easy for them because they've never had to experience it. And I think that that is something that is, I think that that is an ingredient that a lot of our leaders of today, this world that we're entering, will not have. And it's something that makes a man. I mean, the prime ministers and presidents of yesterday, they made decisions based on their history. As it's always said, in order to go forward, you've got to look back. If you forget, if you forget where you're coming from, then you don't have a future. And
Yes.
so the leaders of today, in my estimation, are making some very, very important decisions.
Yes.
They don't have a clue of what's going to be happening, or what the effects may be. It's not that they know, because they're not all knowing.
Yeah.
They,
Well, let me just introduce Lester Percival. Lester is in are you in Russia? Where are you again, Lester?
I'm still in the Netherlands, in a NATO country.
okay. Welcome, Lester. Welcome.
Yes,
You know,
thank you, gentlemen.
I don't know if you've been listening, Lester, but what's your take with what's happening? What's your 1020 as to what Putin is saying? Have you got any inside knowledge?
Um, First of all, evening, gentlemen, even to your viewers.
Mm.
Um, the I am surprised that many people are surprised that Putin actually went ahead with his invasion. If you look at Putin's career, you would see that if he says he's going to do something, usually, he carries it out. And Russia has been wanting to have a huge showdown for years, starting back from the Arab Springs issue. You know, um, so it is not strange that we have this type of military action from Putin. It is strange how everybody is saying that they think diplomacy would have set in. Knowing Putin from the KGB days and stuff like that, diplomacy is not one of his strong suits. I
Mm.
remember a few years ago there was a hostage situation in a theater, right? And I don't remember the number of innocent persons there, patrons there, maybe 71. But after the gunmen refused to give up, he sent in the troops,
Yeah.
and they just started fire. That's the mentality of Putin. So it is not, if you're not going to answer him with equal force, he won't respect you.
Mm.
So, but it is sad that the world is going through one of the greatest pandemics, that's going through this recession. Everybody, I know we're on this military action. So it's like one thing after other after other. There's no break. And this is going to affect oil prices around the world. It's going to affect stock markets. It's going
Yeah.
to affect everything. So as we are coming out of the pandemic, where we are trying to say, let's try to get back to a rhythm of normalcy. Let's try to
Yeah.
rebuild our lives. This happens. It's affecting us again. So it's a global thing.
That's a good point there, guys, that Lester brought up. In that, even today, even today, for sorry, I'm hearing a sound. Can you guys hear a feedback sound? I don't know what it
Is
is.
it my fan?
Let me see something here. Yes, it was your fan. It
Yeah.
was your And what I did, I muted it. Um, isn't it interesting that today we actually the prime minister actually said no more mask. That's for the UK. No more mask for the UK. And at the same time, as people are actually getting out of COVID, well, for the UK, for argument, let's speak with the UK.
Yeah.
No rest, as Lester said, no rest, no time of breather. I said, whew. But people are back on their edge of their bed, worried now. A mate of mine called me and said, "Do you think we need to stock up?" I said, "You mean on toilet paper?" I said, "Even that." I don't know you guys, he was going to go to Costa. I don't know if he's going to be here, And I said, "Listen, if you go down to Costa, get some for me and also the paper towel." And I said, "The foxes have been digging holes for me in the back garden for years now. There's a big hole down there. I don't need the gun, but but people are actually thinking of that, guys. People are actually no rest. So from Rona to Putin, that's a new virus, according to them.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting about that. There's no respite. You know, I mean, I try my best. I do find these things all interesting, but I mean, you and I have spoken before, Sylbourne, but I don't know too much with the details. I prefer to just try and observe the mechanics of it all. And, in all of this, it's all a little bit of a pantomime, though, whereas Putin is the bad guy. Okay, I can accept that Putin may very well be the bad guy entirely, but he's not the only performer on the stage to bring about the show. There are people, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but Ukraine needs to get their weapons from somewhere, and somebody needs to get paid for those weapons. Do you know what I mean? And Putin has got to have more of a reason to be upset with the West than the odd soundbite that comes from Fox News. It's going to take more than that, to get him going. And so, who is it behind the scenes that are setting the scenery, to continue with the pantomime analogy? There are people there setting the scene, and there are people there doing the lighting, and there are directors there nudging the cast in certain directions.
And some doing the hair.
Exactly. And somebody doing the hair. Exactly.
James the hairdresser. So that's
But so that's the interesting thing to me, because it's all well and good blaming Putin. It's not okay that Putin's gone to war, absolutely. But do I really think that he's just decided to bring it all about without some sort of provocation? Because the fact that we've not seen his provocation, or the fact that the BBC say he's not been provoked, does not mean he hasn't been provoked.
Right. I mean, I would agree 100% with James. For example, we all know, if we've kept up to breast with what's taking place, that all of this started from the early 1990s, when Putin said to NATO, "Don't go any further. Do not bring the former USSR satellites under your umbrella. Do not do it." Right now, it's taken from the 1990s all the way to 2022 for Putin to act. Now, listening to what James has said, obviously, we don't know what the CIA has been doing, because they're doing their thing. We don't know what the MI5 or MI6 is doing, because they're doing their thing. And the thing about it is that there are strings being pulled that we, the little men down here, don't know what's going on. All we know now is that fire has raged up in Putin's head, right?
Yeah.
And he is spewing venom based. Listening to what James has said, and he's right. He is spewing venom based on what he is hearing. Not what we are hearing, because we're only hearing at the very last end, But he's hearing things. He's getting intelligences just as much as the Western intelligence agencies are receiving and getting. So there's a lot of strings. There's a lot of pulling. There is a lot of Mirandering that's going on. And obviously, again, it's not what Fox News is saying. Fox News is biased in a lot of ways.
Well,
BBC,
well, well, not even Fox, all of them, because this morning, that's why I put out something at 6 o'clock this morning. I was watching all the news, and it's like they're all looking for something big to happen in the capital. We want to say that there's this explosion. They were looking for something, and I saw people going about their business. Um, and one of the things that Putin said, because he did a press conference, couldn't understand it, but got an interpreter. He claimed his goal was to protect people subject to bullying and genocide. And therefore, I was laughing at one point, in a sense, when the two breakaway republic or whatever in Ukraine invited him in. And he said, all of a sudden, he said, he's a peacekeeper. And I said, that's a master stroke, isn't it? Master stroke. So what he was doing like something like an Absalom. Gary, you can clarify on this. Absalom was one of David's sons in the Bible. Absalom stayed at the gate. He was beautiful with long hair. All the people came and he was loving them up and say, hey, hey, hey. And all of a sudden, Absalom sort of took over the throne from David in a sense, or tried to do something. So Putin was there, all nice up, and those two guys he was talking to and said, okay, Putin, come on in, man, because, hey, we want to be with you. And now he becomes a peacekeeper. And I know he's going through. I don't know.
But okay. I'm going to piggyback off what Gary said.
Yeah.
You see, Putin did an interview. I don't remember if it was Barbara Walters or somebody, but he said, "Listen, I've been made out to be the bad guy for so long." He said, "Let me explain something to you." He says Russia has like eight army bases outside of Russia, right? He said, but the United States have like maybe like 55 or 56. He said, but they're also trying to increase and coming closer and closer into Russian territory. He said, why? What is the need for this? He said, isn't that an act of aggression? He says, when he looked at North Africa didn't have any military US military bases. And he said they toppled Libya. And he started going to say, whenever they try to go into a particular country to have a military base or some type of presence or some type of control of government, and you resist, he said, look what happened. A few years later, they toppled that government, or the rebels, toppled the government. And then all of a sudden, US comes in and to save the day, and a US military base appears suddenly, you know. And he's saying that why is it important for NATO to be coming to closer and closer to Russian territory? Why are they sending in secret operatives? Why is it that an American spy plane crashed with a Russian spy plane? They collided in the air above Russian airspace. He said, what is the need for that? I am not trying to encroach anywhere near America or the Western world, but they are increasingly trying to come into my territory. So we as that James said, there has to be some type of provocation. And I remember when they were going to Afghanistan, right? Remember, that's how the whole Bin Laden thing and the Taliban thing came into play, right? Because he was trying to come to Georgia to come down into Afghanistan and all of that. So it has been a long-standing. I think Putin has had restraint for a long time. If we're to look at the picture that we are seeing, as Gary said, we are seeing the tip of it. But from what I'm seeing, and I'm not picking up on Putin, I'm just saying I think that there have been many instances where he could have gone to war. Many instances. So we have to, I think, break away from the traditional media and say what is happening. Try to get an independent source of what is really happening. And I saw videos in Kirov in the capital, and I'm like, how the media and the presenters are speaking, and when you look in the background, it's two different things.
Yeah, I saw that this morning. Like they're saying something, and I'm saying, hang on a second. People are still going about their business in a certain way, but also, guys, and I'm not doing any, what should I say, any conspiracy stuff or whatever. But as someone said a while ago, Putin has access to lots of information that we are not privy to. America has access to lots of information that we're not privy to. The information I have is what I'm picking up from different source of intelligence or so. I mean, I'm hearing even things like exclusive U.S. biolabs in Ukraine, and they are financed at the expense of U.S. Department of Defense. U.S. biolabs in Ukraine. I don't know. I mean, let's see if they shut this down by me just putting that up. And I'm trying to say, but there's so much information, so much things happening, and I believe Putin is actually saying, "No, man, no. I'm not condoning, anybody being killed now or so." And I'm going to put this out there now in our last minutes is that think about it for a second. War, the implication, if America, NATO, and those guys, because Putin said, if you dare touch a button, no? Also them say, Lester, in Jamaica.
Yeah, man. Come test me now.
James, that's a Jamaican thing. Or touch a hair off of my head. Well, there's no hair in my James will have to give me a wig or something like that. What Putin is saying, touch me now and see what happens. You'll see the mother of all wars. And many are saying to the president, to Biden after his press conference, do you think he's talking about nuclear war?
Probably. I mean, I think for me, the thing in all of this is, like, I'm reading some of the messages here. You've got a lady here, Michelle, and I agree with one of her statements. Sleepy Joe needs to keep his ass out of other countries' business. This is fine. But then twice, because she follows it up with the same comment, she ends that one, which is, I'm with Putin. And this is just my opinion, and I am merely a hairdresser, so, but it just seems to me...
You're my advisor, man. You're my
I'm your political advisor, absolutely. No, but it seems to me that the obvious truth is everybody is clearly wrong. And the reason I mentioned that I'm a hairdresser is because here we have some of the most highly educated people in the world, having gone to some of the finest institutions on the planet. And what they can come up with as a good way to run the world is America increasing their bases all around the world, selling the deadliest of deadly weapons all around the world. You've got, Putin using that as a pretext to go and invade Ukraine, who God knows what Ukraine have done in all this, and then lets everybody sanction everybody. And the whole thing is so ludicrous.
Yes.
Is this what a good education buys us? A good education buys us, a set of people who think it's a good idea to go around and bring about just tension, hatred, rivalry, and division. Where as far as I can see, if you were that educated, surely all you would do is go around and bring about conditions in which I can go to work, you can go to work, the farmer can go and tend to his cattle, the shepherd can tend to his flock, whatever. We can all go on holiday. What else do we need to sell apart from clothes, food, building supplies, and holidays? Honestly.
And hair supplies.
This stuff. And that's what education gives us. That's what these... So everybody's wrong in all of this. It's just nonsense, the whole shebang.
Where do you see this going, Lester? How do you see this unfolding?
Okay. We see one side talking, and it's like NATO or US is like, Putin, if you cross this line, I'm going to punish you. And Putin said, okay.
Stick up in right there. Stick up in right there. Mark Cross on Instagram said, Putin have told the West for 25 years that Ukraine is their red line. And he followed up similar to how Cuba was our red line because he's in the States. You see, things change but still remain the same. Carry on, Lester.
Yeah. So Putin says, okay, I'm going to cross the line and see, what you're going to do. Because guess what? I said this to one of my friends in Long Island today. I said, America is, for analogy's sake, is 6 feet 9 inches, 230 pounds. Russia, same thing. Do you really want to test? So we're equal. Do you really want to fight? Do you really want to see who would win? No. because at the end of the day, nobody wins. When elephants play, right, it is the grass that suffers. And this is exactly what is happening.
Yeah.
Because Putin is not afraid. Okay, let me say this.
Mm.
Putin has one of the largest, or maybe the second largest army in the world, right? China is clearly an ally and backing the actions of Russia.
Mm.
If NATO comes in and interfere, who do you think China will then supply, enforce? So do you really want China on the side of Russia? You know? So I remember China and America does not have a very good relationship.
Mm.
So it is going to be something very, very sticky. So we don't want North Korea and we don't want China
Mm.
going into it because it's going to be very serious, right? And just the size of the Chinese army and the Chinese military
Mm.
combined with the Russian, NATO cannot stand up against that.
I listened to the NATO guy, and I think when I listened to him, no disrespect, it seemed like he's trying to get some relevance or trying to have some relevance out there at the same time. And they keep using this thing: you touch one, you touch all. Touch a quacker, you touch him shut. And it seems like they're drumming up the words, and even ministers of government here and members of parliament in the House of Commons today, we need to teach him a lesson. And I keep saying, guys, teach him a lesson. Who is gonna suffer? It is not Russia or it's we, it's we gonna
Well,
it's we
Yeah.
gonna suffer. Sorry, yeah.
that is why I've said that these people who are calling for teaching and lesson and war and all that, they don't know what war is. They don't know what it
Mm,
does. Now Europe at the end of the Second World War, yes, there was the Marshall Plan. If I think that's what it's called, where the major economies, or let us say the United States, lent Europe billions to rebuild Europe. Europe doesn't want another war.
mm, mm,
War Europe doesn't want another war. And Joe, as much I feel very, very sorry for Joe Biden. Why? He's the oldest president that's ever come in the United States. Yes, and he may have some senile issues to deal with. Okay, fine. You know, let's relax. Let's relax off that a bit. Let's relax off that a bit, yeah. But Biden, he doesn't want a war because again, he's been in war. He's lost a son, I would say,
Yes.
because of that. So
Yeah.
so the world today does not. But I tell you what, if Biden knows who to frighten. But if he does touch a NATO country, then he will have one. He's not going to touch a NATO country.
sorry, Putin. You said
Yeah,
Biden a while ago.
yeah. Putin
Yeah. Mm,
doesn't want. He's not going to touch a NATO country. He wants Poland and all the other satellites, but he's not going to touch them because he knows. Even though Biden doesn't want it, and many of the European nations, they don't want it because they wouldn't
No.
have done diplomacy the way that they did it in the last couple of days because
mm,
they're
Yes.
running away from it. But but
Hmm.
but we've got some idiots here that are saying teach him a lesson because they don't know what war is. They've never
Exactly.
experienced war.
Exactly.
some
Exactly.
someone said even with and when said the UK is gonna squeeze in these rich oligarch. The question you have to ask yourself now is: so if you know these oligarch are here, why were you entertaining them all this time? In a sense, if they're actually being what should I say, mischievous. James, I think you're fine, but don't worry, I mute you. Don't worry, James, I mute you while the fan is going on. That's all right, you know. And and so we're at this point now. We're at this junction now, whereby they're now talking about the mother of all sanctions. Mother of all sanctions. Only you just mentioned a while ago, 43% of EU energy come from Russia. Mother of all
Yeah.
sanctions. What these
Yeah.
sanctions gonna do?
I don't know. Can I just say one thing though?
Yeah.
Because when it was George W. Bush and they were going over to start the war, they had the mother of all bombs, and it's just interesting to me that now we've got the mother of all solutions. I don't know what mother is going to pass this. Whose mother is next?
But
Who's more?
James, 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 Putin is promising the mother of all wars.
Yeah, exactly. Oh no.
Well, I'm glad we can laugh still. You know? So we're laughing Friday, Saturday.
That's it. This is the mother of all talk shows.
Ladies and gentlemen, on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, this is the mother of all talk shows. And I'm trying to say, why do I say mother? Why do they always say mother? As a matter of fact, anybody know the rationale? Where did that come from? The mother of all things.
But we can change that, you know. We can say the daddy of all talk shows.
The damn daddy. But anyway, in the last moment, I did ask Lester, did you finish as you said, where do you think this is going to unfold? Were you finished with that point, Lester?
I do hope that intelligent, as James said, intelligent heads prevail, and I wouldn't like to see a mass loss of lives, because it's always the poor, the less fortunate that suffers in these conditions,
Yes.
because we have seen when there is a pandemic or when there are certain things that the wealthy have the resources to bunker in, have the resources to isolate and insulate themselves.
Yes.
Jeff Bezos for most of the pandemic was on his multi-million-dollar yacht sailing around the world,
Space.
living,
Space.
yeah, and he wants to go to space and all of that. Um, I, if Putin continues to pursue this, I mean, I think that at the end, Ukraine is going to be like a Walmart parking lot.
I shouldn't laugh, but that was good.
Yeah.
Well, yes. I mean, I am. I wouldn't have put it that way, Lester. But yes, I mean, Ukraine is going to be destroyed.
Yes.
It's going to be destroyed. There's
If
no winners.
that
Only
is if
losers.
that is if if there's a retaliation, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
If they retaliate, if
Yeah.
they don't allow Putin to have his way.
Yes.
So you think
Because,
that
because he is not deploying troops just for bluff. He's not. 'Cause, again, he is the only one not doing a lot of talking. If you look at the NATO side of the West,
yeah,
they're doing
yeah.
a lot of talking and sanctions and the finger. He's not into that.
He
We
just
see what he's into.
yeah, he just have that walk, and that walk alone is a powerful walk. Have you seen that walk?
Uh,
I tell you, Gary, what do you say, Gary? How do you see this unfolding?
Well, I mean, it's to me, it's only one way. It's going to go. I mean, the war has started. Putin, as Lester has said, um, Putin hasn't gone in just to wag his finger and then turn his back and go back into the Kremlin. He's not there to do that. He's going in, and he's going to put his own man in Kiev. There's going to be a fight because if the Ukrainian soldiers and the militias, bunker down or dig themselves in, there's going to be war. There's going to be a fight. There's going to be skirmishes, just like what's happened over in the independent Caucasus there in Donbass. Donbass is going to be all over the country.
Right.
So I think I hope it didn't. And the cool heads, the men of renown, if I call them that, like the Henry Kissingers or the Michael Heseltines
Michelle said it. That's what Michelle said. Yes, this is what this is all about. Those rich men.
well, okay, they're rich men, but at the same time, what I'm saying is that these were men who knew how to negotiate. These were men who sat down and negotiated, men who had experience.
Yes.
Does Liz Truss have experience? What experience does Liz Truss have?
No. You Gary, you touch a point, because I was listening to a commentator today, which was a serious guy. I think it was Al Jazeera, and he was actually RT. I think they're shutting down RT. Actually, they're trying to shut down RT Russian time. Um, what he said was that they should have spent time talking to Putin. They were just upon his rhetorics, and as you rightly say, they weren't able to talk to Putin. Boris never had the qualities or the or the capability. There's no one, even Macron. I mean, even the Canadian guy, they're fighting. Listen, those guys fighting their own people.
Trudeau.
I mean, America was demoralizing their army, telling them about that they're gonna sack them if they don't take the jab and everything like that. Demoralize that while Putin was actually getting his man ready, man. He was just saying, laughing after all these guys, strengthening his army, while the West was getting into this woke thing. Craziness.
All the men of experience in our world, the older men, if you notice, they're dying, they're leaving. And who's really replacing, sitting down in the seats of these great men, so to speak? It's little whippersnappers that love to talk and love to, you know,
wood snappers.
Yeah, you know.
Wood snappers. I thought about woodpecker. No, wood
snappers. Young whippersnappers.
Yeah, whippersnappers. You know, they love to talk, and they believe that by talking they're showing their prowess. No, man, no.
I mean, I would say I prefer that people do want to talk. The trouble is, it seems, again, not knowing how it's all arrived at this point, is it's all well and good talking now. If they'd have been talking earlier, there would be no fight. If everybody was being diplomatic well before this, then surely it doesn't arrive at this point because we have good relations. Like, for example, if you're going down, to the pub on a Friday night and there's a guy that you drink with regularly, and then one night he gets terribly upset and he's very drunk, if you go over to him and say, calm down, I'll walk you out to a taxi, he'll listen to you because you've been talking to him. If nobody's been talking to him, he's there all just frustrated and angry, and it's Friday night and he's been drinking beers, he's just going to start laying people out. And I don't really see that much of a difference. I'm not saying everybody's intoxicated here.
Yes.
But the point is, communication should really be ongoing. It should be continual. If it's all of a global community and a global economy and a global society,
yes,
it's a bit late to open the discussions when the tanks have gone in. There's nothing global about that.
Yeah, James, to come back to a point you made earlier that these guys went to the finest schools and they have very good education.
Supposedly.
I remember the past US president, the last US president. He said, why are we fighting with all these countries? Why not we sit and talk to them? And he went and talked to Jim Kim Un. He went and talked to Putin, and everybody was saying, why are you talking to Putin? And we had the US or the world had a relative peace through Trump's presidency, right? But this is the worst president that the US said that they have, but yet still he found a way to be one of the first presidents to go and speak to these gentlemen and say, hey, let me hear what is your cries. Let me hear what your concern. What don't you like that the US is doing, or what NATO is doing, or and he's saying that why is the US paying so much money into NATO? Why is the US paying so much money into this? What are we getting? He said, but this is not fair. When you look at Trump's presidency, the Mexican pesos, right, was at the highest value there is in its history, I think, right? And so there was relative peace and calm, and Trump was about, listen, you take care of your business in your country, we take care of our business in our country. We won't interfere with you, don't interfere with our thing, right? Yes. Now, what we see is a total reversal, but also what we have seen is that the world doesn't respect who is in the White House anymore.
No.
That is it. The world doesn't respect who is in the White House.
Yeah.
That is a huge thing. 'Cause remember, Reagan had a sense of toughness and
Charisma,
and
charisma and diplomacy at the
yeah,
same time.
yeah, and this diplomacy at the same time, And when you go all the way back to Jimmy Carter and all these guys, even Bush the father and all of that, there was a certain level of respect. You know,
Yeah.
you don't have to like the person, but there was a certain level of respect. What we've seen in the last year and a half or so, is that U.S. is like a boat adrift at sea with no captain, no direction, nothing.
A rudderless
Yeah,
boat, if
no,
anything.
nothing at all. So there's no fear or respect coming from Washington anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, well,
And even
sorry,
sorry,
guy.
Sid. And what made it worse, Lester, was that of what happened in Washington D.C. with what Trump started.
Mm,
Yes, January the 6th.
Yes, yeah, January the 6th. You see, that really helped to bring down and the demise of the United States even more, because when that took place, then the world really then knew
yes.
what the American government was and
Yes.
how it was set up, or how or where the foundation is. So
Mm,
Biden has come in at a very difficult time,
yes.
Mm-hmm.
and even when he spoke, when he won the election and he spoke, I don't know if any of you had the
Did he
very
win? He won the election? Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Sorry.
even when he spoke, even when he spoke, I physically almost heard audibly the sigh of the whole world. Now,
Mm,
Trump may have been good. He's not a career politician. He doesn't know how to talk the lingo, and
mm,
so he just went in like a bull in a china shop, really, and just.
yes.
But
Yes.
if he was but because of the way how he did things, and then a career politician coming in, being able to talk, being able to move, his stance, know what to say, how to say it, I believe the world did sigh a sigh of relief that
Mm,
an elder statesman has come in. However,
yes.
however, the elder statesman has come in at a very inopportune time, because I don't think, now looking at it, that he really fits
Mm-hmm.
mold
Yes.
that
Mm-hmm.
the world needs right now. The thought came to me, Sylbourne, just
Yes.
now. If JFK, if a man like JFK came in, how would he handle it? Would he handle it the same way how when Russia put some nukes, as you mentioned, down in Cuba in the
Mm,
1962 standoff, I believe it was?
mm.
Yeah.
Would he have done the same thing now, or how would he handle it? And you
Well,
see,
when Russia had 13 missile launch pads facing to South Florida, you
Yes.
right,
know, they had two nuclear submarines, one in Montego Bay and one in Victoria Pier in Kingston.
Mm,
right,
So it
I
it was it,
mentioned that before. One of them failed to follow orders, is why it
mm,
didn't become a world war, because one of those submarines had orders to
mm.
fire if it lost contact, and it lost contact.
Yeah. Well, guys, listen. It was a
Wait,
great.
before you go, I want to say something very
Yeah.
quickly to what Gary was saying there, though, because talking about this sigh and having an elder statesman and somebody who talks well and everything like that. Well, then I want to remind us, though, what we're saying right at the beginning. We need to look backwards to go forwards. And something that I understand about politics is this: listening to people that know how to talk the talk has not benefited us at
Mm,
all. Not really. Is the world continually improving? Or, like you also said earlier, Sylbourne, the more things change, the more they stay the same.
stay the same.
Yeah,
Yes.
everybody, all these people who have always complained about how a politician doesn't care about us, they get someone in who's not a politician, who goes around and says, listen, I want to sit down and talk and do business for everybody. Everybody's got more money, at least in America. Americans had more money than they've had in years. But everybody hated him. No, what they wanted was for people who come in and speak political talk. Well, I'm hearing political talk now more than I've ever heard it in my life, because it's coming out of the UK, France, Germany, America, And you know what? It makes me worried.
Yes.
Whereas listening to a man that comes in and says, I don't care what Washington says, Washington is the swamp, we're going to drain the swamp. I love that, because that is not let's go to war with Russia. It's not let's teach Putin a lesson. We educated men that know how to be diplomats and have years of experience. We will show him how to behave. That is terrifying.
So therefore, ladies and gentlemen, what we need is strong and effective leadership at this time. But before I go, and want to thank you guys, everybody, the panelists, and also person on the side, Michelle, Scotty, and everyone, Dimples, and those on Facebook. Listen, the mask. I didn't touch on this one. The UK today, there's no more mask. How does that feel, James?
I have not stopped wearing a mask. I personally carried on because one of the things I noticed in hairdressing, we had a period where a clear visor was all that was mandated. And you could see on the inside of the visor where we'd been talking, because it would spray on the inside of the mask, on the inside of the visor. So I have not stopped wearing a mask. Everybody else can do whatever they want to do. But now that I know that by speaking, I am discharging on my clients, I still wear a mask.
And Gary, what do you think about it? Recommended? Stick to the recommendation, even though it's not illegal anymore?
It's up to the individual.
Yeah.
It's up to the individual. I wear it at times, but I don't really feel comfortable with it. So I don't wear it as much as I should, but it's up to the individual. So it's neither here nor there with me.
Lester, you are in Netherlands. What's their policy now? Where are they now at with this?
Last week, the Prime Minister announced that all these COVID measures will be dropped, and so the mask wearing and stuff like that has been dropped. I think by the end of this month, it will be totally, all the regulations and people checking you, like the Corona app and stuff like that, will be all dropped by the end of the month. For me personally, Sylbourne, you know me. I'm a very renegade type of guy. So I never used to wear masks. I have to be confronted to put on my mask. I didn't wear my mask, So I've been carrying on like this.
A soldier, a cowboy. I got you.
I'm more a Russian.
The other thing also is that the isolation period, if someone has COVID, you don't need to isolate anymore. And what the Prime Minister said and what the Health Secretary said is treat it like a cold. And I said, finally. Treat it like a cold, because they said if you have a flu, what do you do if you go into a house or a room or whatever? In Jamaica, they say, James, this is Jamaica. They will say, stay over there so with your germs, stay with your germs, meaning to say, stay back there because you're not well or you're sick or so. And people understand that. That is all we do,
Yeah.
So therefore, here we go, you know what I mean? So I guess Jamaica is going to follow soon now, Lester, yeah?
Yeah. Within a few weeks, I think the Prime Minister Holness will drop all the COVID protocols. I see where he has relaxed the protocol where you have to, if you're traveling to Jamaica, you have to sign up to the Jam COVID site. That's no longer in effect. I think the 1st of March. And some requirements are COVID requirements are relaxed in Jamaica as we speak. But I think slowly the whole world is moving towards that direction. Because we have to live with this. It is not the first we're seeing a pandemic like this. It's not the first the world was asked to wear masks. It happened in England a few decades ago, So it is not new. As you said earlier, the more things change, the more they remain the same.
Yeah. Well, Lester, I want to thank you so much for coming in at such short notice. Grace us from Netherlands, just keeping the NATO family together.
After representing for the Dutch.
James in Manchester, not Jamaica. Thank you so much. Gary in Leeds. Thank you so much. And of course, I've got to stick with Westminster here, stick with the Queen. So, thank you guys. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
And ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much as well for coming on tonight. But listen, I just want to say this Sunday, I'm going to be having a guest, and she's going to be coming on, which is Miss Joan Green. There it is, Joan Green, author of All You Need to Know. Let me turn this down. Author of All You Need to Know about 11 plus. Author of All You Need to Know about 11 plus. And 11 plus handbook is an essential guide for both parents and children, specifically written to help parents and children to understand what the program of study entails, to stimulate the thought process. This will help with decision making. And looking forward to that interview with her, which is going to be this Sunday, the 27th of February at 9 p.m. That is this Sunday with Miss Joan Green. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much. Thank you to those who came on. Michelle, as usual, the Scotty, and all those persons. Thank you very much and have a good night. Instagram as well. Thank you so much for coming on. Peace out. God bless you. Bye bye.